A very good morning, basically. So today I'm going to present regarding on my literature, which is the factors affecting the purchase decision of investors in the residential property market in Malaysia. So this is the executive summary. So this paper is basically to determine the key factors that investors consider before making an investment decision to actually purchase a residential property. So in this study, 200 self-administered questionnaires were distributed to respondents and or more basically transacted for one residential property for the past 3 years. Only 105 survey forms were written and used in generating the analysis. Locational, neighborhood, structural, and financial factors were taken into consideration in this survey. The results reveal that locational, financial, and structural factors do affect the property investors in making their purchase. By understanding the motivation behind the purchasing residential properties, investors would be able to gauge the factors that matter most before investing in property. The problem statement is basically to know what are the potential factors that would lead an investor in the decision-making process to purchase a residential property. So this is what the article is all about. So for introduction, real estate is basically one of the overgrowing sectors in the economy across the world. So this area has also experienced a dramatic growth and creativity, thus being very competitive. In this recent year, the global residential market has grown to be recognized as the most profitable economic activity. Uh, Especially in Malaysia, we know that the home ownership has become a common phenomenon, considering the significant number of people that currently own their own homes. So as we know, Malaysians are basically are actually looking for home and they want to actually have their own homes basically. So there's an increase about 0.4% in the residential property sales. So other than that, also like this, the purchase of these the properties are also helping in the wealth creation basically, because some of them are actually purchasing property as a form of investment. So this review actually will help to understand all the factors of consideration of the purchase decision of the investors for the residential property in Malaysia. So how was the data collected? So there was a self-administered questionnaire using a 5-point Likert scale was used to collect the data from the respondents from Greater Kuala Lumpur GKL. So as we know that Greater Kuala Lumpur is recognized as a vital economic growth center, as over 37% of the nation's gross national product is known as being attributed to Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. So um, yeah, so to ensure the validity of the responses, so the respondents, which is the 153 surveys, basically, or questionnaires, basically, um, which were used, basically, um, they have a criteria where they have obtained and transacted more than one residential property for the past 3 years. So there were 200 self-administered questionnaires that were given, but sorry, not 135. It's 105 forms that were written basically. So there's several more that is not being written for the analysis. But however, there was also a descriptive analysis which was performed to explore the data related to the demographic characteristics of the investors. So these are what actually that is being used. And go to the next slide. The methodology that was used to test the data was the methods of survey and sampling and statistical analysis, where it consists of descriptive and also regression analysis. Out of 105 respondents, 60% of respondents preferred to invest in high-rise apartment and condominium. 28.60% preferred terrace house, 2.90% preferred semi-detached house, 2.90% prefer detached house, and 5.70% prefer other types of residential property. So, as the main thing here is that the factors that taken into consideration are basically the locational, where is the location of the place of the property, the neighborhood, how are the neighbors around the area, the structure basically where it's being constructed, and also the financial factors basically depending on the economy of the people to buy the property basically. So the results actually reveal that locational, financial, and structural factors do affect the property investors in making their purchases. So good location attributes are generally linked to the proximity and accessibility towards the local amenities such as schools, shopping malls, transportation centers. It is one of the prime importance that safety in the neighborhood is the main concern for property purchase. Because when they buy the property, they want to know that that they have access to all the facilities around them, and at the same time it's also a neighborhood because they want to have a good neighbor, so that they can live properly, and basically because it's very important, especially in terms of the safety, that we need to live in a proper place so that we don't face any social or crime issues at that particular area. In Malaysia nowadays, due to the increase of trend of crimes, right, as burglary, snatch theft, so these are some of it basically. So it's they prefer to actually be in a much gated area and also guarded neighborhood basically. So as how I explained related to the safety just now, and other than that, about the financial, because financial is also one of the factors. So financial might be the utmost factor among all the factors. This is because the financials are often involved with money in which the investor would want to gain from the investment. Because when they buy the particular property, they want to get return from the investments as well. So as the result, the financial accounts is almost 30% of the decision for them when purchasing a house. Yeah, and other than that, also we have the what call as the structural factors. The structural factors are also very important basically. So these are what it is basically because like the number of rooms, the bathrooms, it's a feature that one considers before making the home ownership decisions. So it's very important to have a good structure of the house as well in order to attract the customer to basically buy the property. Finding and comment on the article. Basically, being a property investor is a great way to earn either short or long-term financial returns. So, but to find the right property, basically you need a lot of knowledge, and without it, the investment might cost the investors daily. Because if you buy at the wrong place and it is not a strategic place and it does not actually follow all the factors, the locational factors, the neighborhood, the structural factors, the financial factors. So, in that case, basically it can actually cost the investors daily. Um, according to this survey, locational, financial, and structural factors to be the most important one, significant at 5% with a p-value of 0.026 and 0.024 respectively. These significant factors should be taken into consideration as far as investors are concerned. So these three factors are very, very extremely important: locational, financial, and structural factors. However, investors do not really consider the neighborhood of the property purchased as long as they do not have the intention to stay at the property. Because neighborhood is only important when you want to stay at the area. If you don't feel like you want to stay at the area, so that's not a very much important. But maybe you can consider it if, let's say, you're giving a rent, because some people might actually consider the area to stay basically. Um, Other than that, basically, property investment decisions should not always be made just on the basis of profitability, but should ensure that property market remains healthy and sustainable. Even though properties will bring in financial gain, it's not advisable that investors buy what they cannot afford. It is important to stay within the budget to make sure that they can pay for the monthly payments without even without tenants. So, for example, if let's say you buy a property basically you're buying a property for an investment. I know that usually people think on the basis of profitability, but however, how to say is that we should buy a property which is in our means, basically. So if let's say we are earning certain amount of money, we should ensure that we can pay every month for the for the monthly payments, basically for the property. So even though if we do not have a tenant, if we have a tenant, basically it's much more better because the tenant can actually pay us the money. So with that, maybe it reduces our how to say our burden, where we can use the money and then we can pay for the property, basically. So because sometimes some people they already have the property, they already own the property fully. But some people they never own the property fully, so they have to pay. They have to do monthly payment, basically. So yeah, it's all uh, it's all on how they are managing, basically, regarding on it. So it's also a good advice for investors to not gear themselves in borrowings, as there is a need to consider the financing for both acquisition and holding of the property. Given the high rate of RPGT, investors may have to consider changing their investment strategy and avoid flipping them within a short period, as the higher RPGT rate would negatively impact the investors' return. The suggestion for future research is that it is a good advice for investors to not overgear themselves in borrowing, as there is a need to consider the financing for both the acquisition and holding of the property. So basically, this high rate of RPGT is something that they have to really consider, because if they have a high rate of RPGT, it can basically affect the investor return, basically. So it's important for them to always see when they are actually having the acquisition or the holding of the property, they need to see on the rate of the RPGT. The suggestion for further research may consider a broader range of property investment determinants, such as reputation, quality of developers in view of relatively low R square, and finally the analysis of study results, which is only limited to Greater Kuala Lumpur area. So they need to broaden their, how to say, their research, basically, which is not only towards the, how to say, the locational, neighborhood, structural, and financial, but they have to also speak about the reputation, quality of the developers, because all this actually really plays an important part in, in actually determining the property value. And also it should not be limited only to Greater KL area. Maybe it should be it is recommended to extend the research geographically to get a more comprehensive view on the property investment. So maybe they should actually diversify to many people as possible in a much bigger scale area, so they can get how to say, they can get a comprehensive view. The conclusion for this, basically, we based on this article, we found out that I found out that the three things, which is the locational, financial, and structural factors, do affect property investors in making their purchases. These three main things, basically. And becoming a property investor is a great way to earn either short or long-term financial gains, returns. So finding a right property requires a lot of knowledge, which is important, basically, because without it, it will cost the investors dearly. So locational, financial, and structural factors prove to be significant at 5%, with a p value of 0.026, 0.011, and 0.024. So it's very important for us to have a good location. We need to have a good financial. We need to also have a good structural factors of the property as well, basically. So although the government various cooling measures to curb speculation would have a considerable impact on the property market in the short run, but the measures are essential to create a healthier property market led more by fundamentals. Malaysia's property market is a significant contributor to the gross domestic product. It is important to promote the stable property market. So basically, this property market is also one of the contributor to our GDP as well. So it's very important for us to actually promote a stable property market for the country. In this regard, property investment decisions should not always be made on the basis of profitability. So, but should ensure that property market remains healthy and sustainable. Even though properties will bring in financial gain, it's not advisable that investors buy what they cannot afford. It's important to stay within budget to make sure that they can pay for monthly payments even without any. Especially during now COVID-19 time, it's a hard time basically where people basically lose their job, where people basically has less income basically. So those people who basically are having these properties and everything. I do consider that if you actually have a property, you are likely to be like an investor as well. Because how to say, if you have a property to stay, then maybe you are actually buying a property to stay. But if you have a extra property, that means you are actually keeping the property because it is for the investment decision that you make. So in that for anyone like that, basically, so it's important for you to keep the budget, and also it's very important that you can keep paying no matter whatever the economic situation is, or whatever that issues that is going on basically currently, like now it's COVID-19. People are having issues in their business, maybe you are having issues with the job or something. So but still, you can still go on, if you are having the property, you can still pay every month, with or without tenant basically. And this is actually to ensure that the property market remains healthy and sustainable. Yeah? So it's a good advice also for investors to not get themselves in borrowing, as there's a need to consider financing for both acquisition and holding of the property. So they need to also actually know that not to engage themselves in lot of borrowing basically to actually buy a property, because how to say is that high rate of RPGT, so may have to be considered by the investors basically. So this will they need to consider to change their investment strategy and avoid flipping them within a short period lah, because it can actually affect their returns as well. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much, and may you have a good day. Thank you.